Hi and welcome back to the channel. So today's episode whatever is all about this latest. What's latest to me? I arrived a couple of days ago. Mobile Fidelity original master recording, one-step Ultradisc pressing of one of my all-time favourite albums, Crosby Stills Nash, their self-titled debut album. Released in 1969 on Atlantic, and obviously we sadly lost David Crosby a couple of weeks ago, and I did a little video which I'll put up there, just a little tribute to him and talking about his album, If I Could Only Remember My Name, which sort of followed on within a couple of years of this. Now, I had to get this because, being one of my favourite records of all time, it's like, there's just this inevitable wondering, fear, whatever. Is it going to be better than my current favourite copy? So we'll just run through what you get for your money here with Mofi, because I haven't done this for a little while. First of all, you get a really nice, beautiful, rubberized sort of matte finish box, which the only thing I would say negative about it is it picks up fingerprints like they're going out of fashion. So it's a limited edition of 12,000. They're numbered editions. And inside the box here, it's a lovely solid box. Piece of foam to protect things. And then here we have a little description of the one-step process. Now, this one, I've taken the cling film off. I have kept it. It's in the back of the box. But this one was, so what they do is they get the original master recording. They make a one-to-one copy of that in 4x DSD 256. And then that they take back to Sebastopol, where their HQ is. And from that, they cut it to lacquer. That's converted into a stamper, which they used to call the convert, and now they don't. It's interesting. This makes more sense. And then from that, they press the vinyl. Now, you're cutting out there the father and the mother stage, which are both moulding stages, and therefore two potential sources of loss of information. So it's I have heard arguments that it's not, that there are negatives to it. I think the only negative to it is the time, the money, and if we weren't making this from a DSD file, we would have to be playing the original master recording tape over and over every sort of 500 or 1,000 pressings when the stampers wear out, to make a new lacquer, to make a new stamper, if you see what I mean. You can only make one stamper from the lacquer, in the same way as you could only make one father from the lacquer. So that's kind of the one-step process. The idea being that if you cut out these extra moulding steps, you cut out losses and you get something closer to the original, in theory. So then we get a reproduction of the original cover with their familiar original master recording logo across the top, and that's the original inner sleeve. You can see here Mofi greatly acknowledges and thanks these individuals and companies for the technical support and expertise. Tim de Paravicini, who was a good friend, brilliant audio engineer, and I believe he modified and built a lot of their tape machines and their mastering and cutting apparatus. Pass Labs, Lipinski Sound, and Sound Application. So that's the cover. That's what you get. And then this is the lyric sheet, which let me just put these down. Again, printed on nice card. And it's very similar to what came with the original, except that was on thin paper. So this is, it's nicer. And then not one, but because this is cut at 45 RPM, 2 LPs. And then inside, same on both discs, You get a nice liner, which I really do like. Adds an extra layer of protection. And these beautiful inner sleeves, same as Analog Productions used on their UHQRs. And the very beautiful record pressed on super vinyl, which is translucent. You can probably see me through there. Pressed at RTI in California. And there we have it. 2 records pressed at 45 RPM. So what you get is a beautiful product. So if I just put this away, and now I just want to put set this in, put this in context to me, my musical taste, my record collecting. So, as I said earlier, one of my favourite records of all time, for me, Crosby, Stills and Nash, this sort of scene, the Haight-Ashbury scene, if you like, the late 60s, it really is kind of core to my whole musical being, if you like. I was playing, just to sort of set the scene, I always think this is where it all started for me. So this is Buffalo Springfield's first album with the A version, an original US pressing, and we all know the song For What It's Worth, released late 65, early 66. I think it was 65 for the original version without For What It's Worth, and then they reissued it, I think in January, just a couple of months later, putting the single on. And it's just, it sets the scene for me perfectly. So Buffalo Springfield disbanded a few years later, and Stephen Stills, famously at a party at Mama Cass's, met David Crosby and Graham Nash, and Crosby, Stills and Nash was born. Now, I need to not get these muddled up. So these are my 2 other copies of this. Okay. So first of all, we've got here, this is really nicely textured cover. And this is a UK original. Still got the lyric sheet in there, as I mentioned. And this is a UK original on the plum and red Atlantic label. A US original of this would be on the green and orange label. And it's in, I'd say it's in near mint condition, which for a 50 odd year old record is not, becoming increasingly hard to find. Now, the other copy I have, which I'd like to compare, I think comparisons help put things in context. So this is the other copy I've got. Now, sadly, I don't have the cling film on this. I didn't save it, but lyric sheet again. Now this is manufactured and distributed under license by Classic Records Incorporated. So this is the Classic Records release of, I think it was about 2001, 2002. Cut by Bernie Grundman, I believe. Yep, BG signature in there. So this was Classic Records, obviously now owned by Analog Productions. So this was a remaster from the original tapes, allegedly, by Bernie Grundman for Classic Records, and was, pressed on their lovely vinyl. I think they called it Quiex Super Vinyl. Which I shall just pop away again. But I want to just discuss, before we get into the real listening and running through this, I want to just bring up their second album. Well, it's not Crosby, Stills and Nash's second album. It's Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, Deja Vu, showing you Buffalo Springfield, where they came from. And this is where they went. So I've got 3 copies of this. Now, what makes me suspect that Classic Records might be the 200 gram version is because I've got the Classic Records QX SVP 200 gram version of Deja Vu. And if you note, this is still sealed. I haven't opened it. Kind of a reason for that. And then I have here, they're both textured covers, quite a different texture, it has to be said. But this one is a UK original, so same as what I showed you with the first album. And this one with a more heavily textured. This is, as with my David Crosby I showed you last week. This is the US original. Now, between the US and the UK originals of Deja Vu, they're very close. They're very, very, very close in sound quality. I'm not going to do numbers here. I'm trying to talk about the colour of the sound, the flavours of the sound, what you get. Because I think in this instance, it's hard to say what any one person is going to prefer. Now, out of these two, US original, UK original, my favourite is the US original by a Nat's whisker. Maybe, okay, I didn't say I wasn't going to do numbers. 90 to 95%, let's say, or 95 to 100%, whatever you want to call it. It's close, but the US does have it for me. It's just that little bit more dynamic, that little bit more swing and groove to it, and a little bit more drive, weight and passion. And you're going to say, well, why haven't I opened this? Why haven't I compared it to this? There's kind of a reason. The first thing is I noticed that this is going for like several £100s. I'm not even sure if there is a still sealed version on Discogs at the moment, but I think it was like $400 or €400 anyway. But the reason I haven't opened the Classic Records there is because I have opened the Classic Records here. And I think I mentioned on that, if only I could remember my name, I did have the four single-sided version of that album. I think it was that album. And I subsequently got rid of it. But anyway, between this and this, how do they sound different? The Classic Records versus the original. Right, well, it's not the world's greatest recording, I would say. It isn't. It's a little bit sort of murky. It's a little bit vague. You can't redo an old recording, but it's that isn't really a criticism. It's just the harmony vocals, they do kind of meld into one to some degree. It's not recorded in a sort of forensic manner, and thank goodness it isn't, because it's one of my favourite musically records ever of all time. So if we take the original, bearing in mind this is the UK, as the benchmark, I'm assuming the differences between the original UK and US would be similar to the Deja Vu, which is very, very slight. So this is still very, very good. If we take this as a benchmark and then we play the Classic Records, there is no question that the Classic Records is more open, it's clearer, it's tighter sounding, the bass is definitely deeper, the voices are less veiled. It is a couple of dB quieter. You do need to jack the levels up a little. Yeah, it's all just a bit clearer. It's a little bit more kind of, you can hear more space, if you like, but it's not necessarily a 3D space. I wouldn't say the sound stage is bigger. It's just clearer and tighter and bass deeper. Now, I wouldn't say that it flows musically as well as the original. There's not the sort of the organic kind of flow to the groove, sort of. It just doesn't. It's almost like looking at a more forensic picture. It really depends on how you want to listen to music and how you enjoy listening to music. Now, if we get onto the Mofi, now this is kind of, this really is kind of quite interesting. So I would say it's clearer still. It's clearer than the classic records. It's noticeably clearer than the original. But that clearer is sort of could be viewed as a thinness. The bass is without a doubt more agile, but the quantity of the bass, unusually for a Mofi, I would say the quantity of the bass is less than the classic records. The classic records actually is a bit bloomy in the bass, I would say, to be honest. This is sort of a tighter, faster sounding bass, and there's more clarity in the vocals. There's more separation. The guitars are clearer. So if that's your thing, this is definitely the best yet, I would say. However, for me, the guitars being clearer, at the same time, they're kind of less natural, with less body. And so if you go from the original to the classic to this, there's an upgrade in clarity each step. There's an upgrade in sort of bass agility and openness with each step. Certainly from the original to the classic, there's an increase in the bass power too. I'd say that sort of ekes back in this, but that's probably a good thing. I actually think the classic sort of slightly overdoes the bass to a point. It's sort of a bit bloomy. And this one, the soundstage is definitely bigger, I would say, than the classic. There's more space. But then you do the same comparison going back the other way. So if you start with this, go to the classic, go to the original. As you go back, it becomes... The difference between this and the classic is actually kind of small-ish in this sense of flow and rhythm and sort of passion and soul, the sort of the expression of the artists, their feeling, their gut, their passion. But when you get finally back to the original, from this to the classic to the original is just plain more exciting. It's more euphoric. There's more soul, there's more rhythm, there's more groove, there's more warmth. The timing of the drumming is just better, simple. It's almost lost in the other two. There's a dynamic tension in this, which is there in all good music. I think that sort of, that moment, that split second moment of being held at the end of one line before you go into the next line, that all really is there in the original, and it is slightly lost in this, and it's slightly lost in the classic. And the classic, in comparison with the original, it's clearer, yes, it's got deeper bass, yes, it's slightly less veiled, yes, it's in so many hi-fi ways of sort of sound quality, you could argue that this is superior to the original. But it's kind of, it's like distilled water. It's clearer by being distilled. And for me, that slightly takes away its musicality and its soul. And this, honestly, takes that a step further. So if you've heard the classic or got the classic and you prefer it, if you've heard this on CD and you prefer it to the vinyl, every chance you'll like this more than the original, and every chance you'll like this more than the classic. If you've got the original and you've got the classic, And for all the clarity of the others, this one just keeps pulling you back because it has the soul, it has the excitement, it has the euphoric rhythm, the warmth, the passion, the tension, the contrast that makes that song for you so good. Then frankly, I'd stick with it. And really, this remains my definitive version. I kind of can't give them, it's hard to give them grades, because if I was grading them on sound quality, this would come out the least, if you see what I mean, the original. And I'd say probably the Mofi would have to come out on top. There's definitely a sort of a slightly bloated base to the classic. But if I'm talking about a fantastic record and which one sounds the best to me, it would be the original. And that really is why, why I, having bought this, having opened the Crosby Stills and Nash and played that through and like, kind of sounds better, but it's not what I want. And having with the 4-record version of If I Could Only Remember My Name, stunning sort of, from memory, stunning kind of clarity, but just it's lost the soul of the record. And that's why that one remains still sealed. And frankly, I should sell it on because it's worth good money. And that's of these two, my absolute favourite by a small margin is the US original. And interestingly enough, the Buffalo Springfield, that's a US original, and it sounds absolutely splendid. My If I Could Only Remember My Name is a US original and sounds absolutely splendid. So, the conclusion of this really is that we've got 3 really quite different sounding pressings of the same album, and what I really wanted to try and convey is how they sound different, rather than say one is better than the other, because I can well imagine why this original, it's not the world's greatest recording. Perhaps someone might think, it's this murky old early 1969 recording, great music, but I'm just not getting it, and therefore maybe one of these reissues, remasters would suit you better. So yeah, there we have it. A really impressive record, supremely clean. And it actually really reminds me of the, DSD aside, it really reminds me of the, if I Could Only Remember My Name, the classic records, 4 LP, 45 RPM sound. It's that similar thing. It's major, raison d'etre is the clarity. And if that clarity is what you really, really, really seek, and that floats your boat, this is probably going to be your number one, above the classic records. For me, as I said, I'll stick with the original. I think I'll stick with the original. But it's interesting to hear these. It really is interesting to hear these. And I'll probably always... look out for new and better. I mean, that's the trouble is, someone releases a new version of something, and if it's an album you love, you kind of got to get it to find out, really. I mean, different if these things were not limited releases, and you could, or if you got the chance to borrow them, that would be nice. I mean, so I do thank David Brook for, he gave me a discount on it, so that's cool. Yeah, I'll listen to it a few more times, just enjoy listening into the extra clarity and detail, but for the music, I'm sticking with the original. Anyway, on that note, I'll say thank you very, very, very much for visiting the channel and watching this video, and I will be back. I will be back very soon. Actually, I just want to have a brief mention about record cleaning. Okay. On that note, I say thank you for watching. See you soon. Cheers. Goodbye. Bye.